Hi there. You are listening to the Play Squad Pod with Katy Harkness, coaching conversations with women just like you. Here I'll dive into the real life conversations that I'm having with the women in my squad, all working to transform their lives. Why am I sharing this? Well, what they are going through and dealing with and finding challenging is the same for so many others. Each episode is going to feature candid conversations and actionable tips on overcoming life's challenges and navigating midlife with strength and confidence. Ultimately, I want you to be the main character in the movie of your life story rather than a walk-on part. Now, today we're going to dive into a topic that is especially relevant for some of my clients this week. They are feeling under the weather. There's COVID, there are colds, hay fever is on the agenda, and there hasn't been a session in the last 3 weeks where we have had a full squad. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not feeling great today either. I'm a bit woolly-headed and my voice is getting a bit husky. Perfect for a podcast, some might say. Now, it's really frustrating, especially when you are enjoying training and you are enjoying making progress towards your goals, because feeling under the weather can feel like a massive backwards step. So today I have scrapped what I was going to talk about, and I'm going to be talking about the importance of rest. I'm going to be talking about avoiding overtraining. I'm going to be talking about listening to your body and ultimately embracing the journey and thinking long term rather than focusing on a bit of a blip. It's going to be a shorter podcast than usual, as I reckon I've probably got about 15 minutes of chat in my vocal cords. So I'm going to kick off with how to know when to rest. Now, this might sound blindingly obvious, but for many, obvious and then ambition don't always go hand in hand. Ultimately, it's all about listening to your body and not kind of sticking your fingers in your ears and ignoring how you are feeling. So, what are the body's signals for easing up? The things that are telling you just to slow down a little bit. First up, persistent soreness. Now, it's totally normal after a workout to feel a little bit sore, to have delayed onset muscle soreness or DOMS, especially if you're new to training. It's basically your body's way of saying, oh, hello, this is a new movement. But ultimately, if the soreness doesn't go away after a few days, it's a sign that you might be overdoing it a little bit. Another sign is if your resting heart rate is elevated. So if your resting heart rate is higher than usual, it could indicate that your body is under stress and needs some rest. Now, I have a Garmin, I have a tracker, and the one thing that I always notice when I have been feeling a little bit under the weather is that actually in the 2-3 days prior to me feeling under the weather, my resting heart rate had actually gone up. It's a great indicator of how your body is doing and whether you need to rest up and take things a little bit easier. If you're having trouble sleeping, or if you're menopausal, possibly more trouble sleeping than usual, so if you're having difficulty falling asleep or indeed staying asleep, that can also be a sign of overtraining. And I'll talk a bit more about overtraining a little bit later in the podcast. And feeling run down in general, so general fatigue, irritability, or a lack of motivation are all signs that your body needs a break. So sometimes if you aren't feeling it, rather than getting on with it, if you're also feeling fatigued and run down, your body needs a break. Listen to it, take that break. Listening to your body is so important. There have been lots of studies done about fatigue, illness, injury, training when you are not necessarily up to it. And a study from the European Journal of Applied Physiology found that athletes who listen to their body, listen to their body's signals, and adapt their training accordingly have lower injury rates, 30% lower injury rates, and ultimately they have better long-term performance. Now, you might say, I'm not an athlete, Katy, this really isn't relevant to me. But when injury or fear of injury is such a prevalent thought in so many of the women that I have consultations with, that I train, this is what I hear time and time again is a fear of injury, then listening to your body in order to reduce the likelihood of injury becomes so, so important. What can you do though? What can you do if you are feeling a little bit under the weather, a little bit fatigued? Your body is telling you to take it a little bit slower. If you're just starting on your journey, there's a real kind of feeling that you should just kind of push through. But there are things that you can do that mean that you aren't just pushing through and trying to work at the same intensity. And this is the advice and coaching that I've given my under the weather clients this week. They're frustrated and they want to do stuff. And that's not to say that you can't do anything at all. What you can do is adapt your workouts and adapt your activity level. It's absolutely fine to modify your workouts. And it's also absolutely fine to modify your workouts at any point in time in line with how you are feeling. Not every workout has to be high intensity. So you can focus on lighter activities like some gentle yoga or some stretching or a light walk, or indeed if you are still going to train, which I would seriously reconsider, but if you are hell-bent on that, then drop your weights down, do fewer reps, move, but move with less intensity than you necessarily intended. It's better to do a lighter workout than it is to push yourself and risk injuries or prolonged illness. In fact, these type of lighter activity recovery days are brilliant to factor in to your routine anyway. They promote blood flow and that helps muscle recovery without putting too much strain on your body. Ultimately, don't be afraid to take an unscheduled rest day if you're feeling off. It's better to have a day or two off to recover than to push through and then to suffer a longer term setback. Rest is absolutely crucial. And rest is crucial as well when you are feeling tip top. Those are the times when you are far more likely just to go for it and perhaps overtrain. I see this especially when people are motivated, when they are buzzing, and when they're just starting training. Everything is new and everything is exciting. And there is an over-enthusiasm in an effort to see quick results. And that is more often than not people's undoing. I have to metaphorically restrain clients from going a bit bananas in their efforts initially. Everything from the number of training sessions to wildly increasing their steps. And the reason that I do this is very much so that they don't suffer a setback and become injured. And reports suggest that 20 to 25%, so up to a quarter of beginners, experience some form of injury within the first few months of starting an exercise program. And more often than not, that is due to overtraining and that over-enthusiasm. Rest days are really important to factor into your program. Those active recovery days whereby you might go for a light walk, you might do some mobility work and some stretching just to get blood flowing, I should say, to your muscles. So the importance of rest, this is when your body ultimately is going to repair and strengthen itself. You need to incorporate it to enable this to happen. It's just as important as the workouts themselves. When you exercise, fundamentally kind of what's happening is you're creating tiny tears in your muscle fibers. And during rest, particularly during sleep, your body is repairing these tears, making your muscles effectively stronger. Without it, you're just going to effectively overtrain, effectively put too much stress on your body. Overtraining is really, really very real. It happens when you train too hard and too often without giving your body enough time to rest, recover, recuperate. And the symptoms of overtraining to look out for include kind of chronic fatigue. So just feeling really tired and really lethargic all of the time. Seeing a decreased performance in what you're able to do in the gym. Having an increased risk of injury from overtraining. And it can even impact kind of your mood. So you might become more irritable or just feeling more anxious or more depressed. So overtraining is very, very real. The American College of Sports Medicine highlights the risks of overtraining, including the chronic fatigue that I've mentioned, but also that immune system suppression. So overtraining with immune system suppression can lead to kind of more frequent colds and more frequent infections. So it's not unusual for people to get themselves into a bit of a cycle of training too much initially and overtraining. And then with that immune system suppression, getting ill or injured and having to have an enforced rest. And then what happens is you'll get frustrated. And then when you're better, you'll effectively kind of train too hard again, which means that you'll then overtrain, you'll get ill, you'll get injured, and you'll have to take an enforced rest, leading to more frustration. Then you come back to it and you'll train hard again. And that cycle just continues. It's why so many people can end up being so stop-start. They're just overtraining initially, being too enthusiastic and not bringing in those important rest days. So watch out for overtraining. It's so important to ensure that you have kind of realistic goals to guide you and that you pace yourself, especially if you're just starting your fitness journey. I cannot overstress this. Remember, it's not about doing absolutely everything at once, but making steady progress over time. And this is very much where a coach will come in, will help you set up realistic goals and a realistic program that ensures that you don't end up in that stop-start cycle of overtraining, getting ill, being injured and enforced rest, coming back to it, trying to make up for lost time. After all, this isn't a 12-week program. Fitness is a lifelong journey. It shouldn't just be this crazy 12-week sprint. So if you are injured or feeling under the weather, it's really important to maintain a long-term perspective. It's important to kind of manage your frustration when you need to take a break. And that can be really, really tough. But trying to reframe it becomes all important. So use the time off to reflect on your progress, where you were and where you are now. What is it that you're able to and capable of doing now that you weren't able and capable of doing when you initially started? You can use that rest period as well to kind of set new goals, or you can use it to kind of focus on other areas. So concentrate on your nutrition or your mental well-being instead of going hell for leather with training. There is always something that you can be doing to help move you forward on your journey that isn't just training, and to kind of manage your frustration. Ultimately, rest is crucial for muscle recovery and overall health. Overtraining is going to lead to kind of serious setbacks. So it's important to listen to your body and take those breaks when you need them. After all, it's a lifelong journey, not a sprint. I've taken it easy today as I knew I wasn't up to a longer podcast. I'm at about 15 minutes at the moment. My voice is starting to go. I don't think it's going to last much longer. I need to rest it. I've listened to my body. I've made changes and I've adapted what I was planning on doing today. And I know that this is the right thing for me to do, and that I'll be back next week to cover what I had planned to do today. And that's great. That's all good. So listen to your body, and thank you for listening to the Play Squad Pod this week. Have a great week, and I will see you next week.